The Alliance flagship Stellar Horizon shuddered as another volley of Kraxon plasma torpedoes slammed into its shields. In the cramped maintenance shaft, Maya Chen braced herself against the vibrating bulkhead, her magnetic boots barely keeping her anchored as she studied the tangle of conduits before her. "Engineering status report!" First Officer Zexitar's voice crackled through her comm. His crystalline tone carried the sharp edge of barely contained panic. Maya ignored the demand, focusing instead on tracing the path of the shield harmonics through the mess of damaged circuitry. The Kraxon had somehow matched their shield frequency, again, and the Horizon's automated systems couldn't adapt fast enough. But Maya had noticed something in the attack pattern, a flaw in the enemy's targeting algorithm that might just save their lives. "Engineer Chen, I require an immediate—" "With respect, sir," Maya cut in, her fingers flying over her diagnostic pad. "I'm a bit busy preventing us from becoming space debris." She yanked open an access panel, revealing the shield matrix's primary control node. The crystalline structure pulsed with an angry red glow. Definitely not supposed to do that. Another hit rocked the ship. Through the open comm channel, Maya heard the bridge crew reporting shield strength at 28% and falling. "Whatever you're doing down there," Zexitar said, "it clearly isn't working. The automated systems are designed for predictable threats," Maya finished. She pulled a universal adapter from her tool belt and began splicing it into the matrix. "The Kraxon are using a quantum-shifted targeting system. That's why they keep matching our frequency." "Impossible. Our shields use randomized." "Random isn't random enough." Maya's diagnostic pad chirped a warning as she bypassed 3 safety protocols. "They've figured out the pattern. But I've got something better." She could practically hear Zexitar's crystalline features rearranging themselves into their standard expression of disapproval. The Lithosian first officer had never quite adjusted to human engineering methods. "Engineer Chen, whatever unauthorized modification you're attempting—" "Trust me," Maya grinned, inputting the final sequence. "I'm an engineer." She slammed the override command into place. The shield matrix screamed in protest as Maya's program took hold, forcing it to cycle through frequencies in a decidedly non-random pattern. "Shields at 15%, someone called from the bridge. "Chen, what have you—" The next Kraxon volley slammed into their shields and bounced off harmlessly. Maya's smile widened as she watched the energy readings on her pad. "How?" Zexitar's voice trailed off. "Humans have this old game called rock, paper, scissors," Maya explained, already moving to reinforce the modification. "Everyone thinks the best strategy is to be random. But humans are terrible at being random. We fall into patterns without realizing it. The real winning strategy is to recognize those patterns and use them. You based our shield modulation on a primitive human game." "I based it on human psychology." Maya sealed the access panel. "The Kraxon AI is too perfect in its randomization. By creating a pattern that looks random but isn't, we became unpredictable to their targeting systems." Through the comm, she heard the weapons officer reporting that the enemy ships were falling back, their attacks no longer effective. The bridge erupted in relieved cheers. "Unorthodox," Zexitar said finally, "but effective. Though I question the wisdom of relying on such improvisational methods." Maya was about to respond when a new alarm blared through the ship. On her pad, readings from the quantum sensors spiked off the scale. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," the sensor officer shouted. "Much larger than anything we've seen before. They're using some kind of masked approach vector." "Bigger ships, better cloaking," Maya muttered, already calculating what modifications they'd need. "The last attack was just a test run." As she sprinted toward the main engineering bay, Maya couldn't help but smile. The real challenge was just beginning. The emergency briefing room hummed with tension as Admiral Nix studied the holographic display of the recent battle. Her iridescent scales shifted through shades of deep blue, a sign of intense concentration among the meridians. Maya had learned to read their color patterns during her 2 years aboard the Stellar Horizon, though she still struggled with the subtler emotional hues. 3 scout ships, Nick said, her voice like distant thunder. They sacrificed 3 advanced scout ships just to test our defensive capabilities. The Admiral's scales flickered with amber spots. Frustration, maybe anger. And now we detect their main fleet approaching with masked signatures. The Kraxen have always favored probe attacks, First Officer Zextar noted from his position near the door, his crystalline form refracting the room's light. Though never with such valuable assets. Because they've never faced a serious threat before, Maya interjected, earning sharp looks from several of the senior staff. Humans were still newcomers to the Alliance, and some officers clearly thought she was overstepping. She continued anyway. Look at their attack pattern. They weren't just testing our shields. They were testing our adaptability. Admiral Nix's scales rippled with an interested purple sheen. Explain! Maya stepped forward, manipulating the hologram to show the enemy ship's movement patterns. The Kraxen have dominated every species they've encountered through superior technology. Their quantum-shifted weapons, their predictive targeting systems. It's all designed to overwhelm conventional defenses. But humans, she smiled. We have a long history of beating superior technology with creative solutions. Your shield modification was impressive, Zextar admitted reluctantly, but hardly a strategic advantage. The Kraxen will have already analyzed and countered it. Exactly. Maya's excitement drew confused looks. They'll adapt to that specific solution, but that's not the point. We showed them something they've never seen before. Genuine improvisation. That's why they're bringing in their heavy hitters. We've made them uncertain. Lieutenant Commander Rylith, the ship's chief engineer, spoke up from his corner. His leaf-like appendages rustled with agitation. The Kraxen have conquered 12 star systems in the last solar cycle. Their neural-linked battle computers process tactical situations faster than organic minds can comprehend. How can uncertainty help us against that? Because computers hate uncertainty, Maya replied. They can't properly calculate outcomes without reliable variables. And humans? Her grin widened. We specialize in being unreliable variables. Admiral Nix's scales shifted to a thoughtful green. You have a proposal. It wasn't a question. Maya nodded, pulling up the schematics she'd been working on since the battle. We can't match their technology, but we can use it against them. Their neural-linked systems are vulnerable to cascading feedback loops. If we can introduce enough chaos into their network... Chaos? Zextar's crystalline features arrange themselves into sharp angles of disapproval. We need a tactical solution, not abstract theories. Sometimes chaos is tactical. Maya expanded the schematics, showing her modifications. We just need to make a few adjustments to our quantum resonators, and maybe borrow some concepts from an old human engineering principle called percussive maintenance. Admiral Nix's scales flashed with curious gold streaks. Percussive maintenance? Maya hefted her favorite wrench with a grin. Sometimes, Admiral, the most elegant solution is to hit something really hard and see what breaks. The engineering lab buzzed with frantic energy as Maya and Rylith worked to modify the quantum resonator. Holographic diagrams flickered around them, showing cascading waves of probability calculations that made Maya's head hurt if she looked at them too long. This is fundamentally unsound, Rylith said, his leaf-like appendages twitching as he reviewed her calculations. You're proposing we deliberately introduce errors into our own systems. Maya ducked under a hanging bundle of fiber-optic cables, balancing her diagnostic pad on one hip. Not errors, controlled chaos. There's a difference. Chaos cannot be controlled. That's why it's chaos. Tell that to a butterfly. Maya caught Rylith's confused expression and waved off the coming question. Old Earth reference. The point is, small changes can have predictable, unpredictable effects. That statement is self-contradictory. Welcome to human engineering. Maya pulled up the resonator's base frequency patterns. Look, the Kraxen systems are perfect. Too perfect. They process battle data through quantum-linked neural networks, right? But they still have to observe and react to succeed. Rylith's appendages rustled thoughtfully. The uncertainty principle. All observations affect the system being observed. Exactly. So we create a system that, when observed, creates cascading uncertainties in their targeting calculations. Maya's fingers danced over the holographic controls, adjusting variables. Their computers will try to compensate, which creates more uncertainties, which require more compensation. Until their entire tactical network descends into chaos, Rylith finished, his tone mixing horror and fascination. But our own systems rely on quantum calculations as well. We would be equally vulnerable. That's why we're going analog. Maya reached into her toolkit and pulled out what looked like a mechanical clock's inner workings. Sometimes the old ways are better. What is that? Mechanical oscillator, purely physical, no quantum elements. We'll use it to regulate the resonator's base frequency. Rylith's appendages drooped. You want to control our most advanced defensive system with gears? Gears are reliable. Maya began connecting the oscillator to their test apparatus. No quantum uncertainty, no probability calculations, just good old-fashioned physical laws. The Kraxan won't know what hit them because their computers won't be able to model it. A warning klaxon sounded through the ship, making them both jump. Maya checked her pad. Another sensor contact, closer this time. We're running out of time, Rylith noted, his normally rustling voice tight with tension. Then help me with these connections. The oscillator needs to interface with the quantum matrix without disrupting the base harmonics. They worked in focused silence for several minutes, Maya's human hands and Rylith's dexterous appendages moving in surprising harmony. Despite their philosophical differences, they developed an efficient working rhythm over the past 2 years. There's still one problem, Rylith said, as they made the final adjustments. The mechanical system's error margin is significantly higher than our standard quantum regulators. Maya grinned. That's not a problem, that's the solution. We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be just imperfect enough to drive their targeting systems crazy. The test apparatus hummed to life. Both engineers watched as the quantum field measurements fluctuated wildly before settling into an erratic but stable pattern. It's working? Rylith sounded unsure whether to be pleased or alarmed. The quantum field is maintaining coherence despite the mechanical regulation. Better than working. Maya's grin widened as she studied the readings. It's working wrong in exactly the right way. Another alarm blared. The Kraxan fleet was accelerating. Maya began disconnecting the test apparatus. Time to scale this up to ship size. Hope you're ready for some heavy lifting. This plan is still highly irregular, Rylith noted, already moving to help. Irregular is about to become our greatest weapon. Now, where did I put that big wrench? Maya was elbow deep in the resonator's primary housing when her diagnostic pad chimed with an anomalous reading. She frowned, checking the quantum field harmonics, and felt her blood run cold. Rylith? She called out, keeping her voice carefully neutral. Could you verify these output patterns? The chief engineer rustled over, his leaves shifting in what she'd learned to recognize as confusion. The field variance is within expected parameters. Look at the subsystem logs. Maya highlighted a sequence of numbers. These adjustments weren't made by either of us. Rylith's appendages went still, a sign of intense focus. Someone has been modifying the quantum harmonics. Small changes, almost undetectable. But enough to create a pattern. Maya pulled up the ship's communication logs, cross-referencing the timestamps. A pattern that matches perfectly with the Kraxan attack intervals. Impossible. Only engineering crew have access to... Rylith stopped, his leaves drooping as realization hit. Technician Vex. Maya nodded grimly. The junior technician had been suspiciously interested in their modifications. They've been feeding our shield frequencies to the Kraxan, probably for months. A new voice cut through the tension. Very observant, Engineer Chen. Maya turned to find Vex in the doorway, holding a quantum disruptor. The normally silent technician's crystalline form pulsed with an unsettling red glow. "The Kraxan appreciate pattern recognition too," Vex said, their voice oddly melodic, "especially in species that refuse to acknowledge their technological superiority." "Is that what this is about?" Maya kept her hands visible, mind racing. "Proving the Kraxan are better?" "They are better. Their neural networks have achieved perfect efficiency. True technological harmony." Vex's crystal facets sparkled with zealous intensity. "The Alliance clings to organic imperfection, allowing chaos elements like humans to contaminate pure systems." "Contaminate?" Rylith's leaves rustled angrily. "Maya's innovations have saved this ship multiple times." "Her innovations are regression, primitive mechanical solutions that corrupt quantum perfection." Vex gestured at the modified resonator with their free hand. "This blasphemy ends now. Step away from the device." Maya shifted slightly, positioning herself between Vex and the crucial mechanical oscillator. "You know what humans are really good at, besides engineering?" Her hand inched toward her toolkit. "Distraction." The emergency light suddenly flashed red. Vex instinctively looked up, and Maya moved. Her wrench flew with practiced accuracy, knocking the disruptor aside. Rylith's appendages whipped out, entangling Vex before they could recover. "Security to engineering," Maya called into her comm. "We've got our leak." As security officers rushed in to secure Vex, Maya was already back at her workstation, fingers flying over the controls. "They'll have our shield modifications," she said grimly. "We need to completely reconfigure the system." "There isn't time," Rylith noted. "The Kraxan fleet will be in range in less than 2 hours." Maya's eyes narrowed as she studied the quantum readings. "Then we'll give them exactly what they expect, right up until we don't. How do you feel about a little double bluff engineering?" The Stellar Horizons bridge thrummed with nervous energy as the Kraxan fleet dropped out of quantum space. Maya watched from her makeshift engineering station as 12 warships materialized against the starfield, their crystalline hulls refracting distant starlight into deadly prismatic patterns. "Enemy fleet holding at maximum weapons range," the sensor officer reported, reading active scanning across all frequencies. Admiral Nix's scales shifted through shades of tactical focus, deep blues threaded with silver. "They're analyzing our defenses. Status of the modified shield system?" "Quantum harmonics operating at standard parameters," Maya replied, watching her carefully crafted diagnostic display. The real readings were hidden on a separate screen, showing the true chaos brewing beneath the surface. "Ready to initiate on your command." First Officer Zexitar studied the tactical display with sharp crystalline angles of concern. "They'll expect another trick." "They're counting on it," Maya said, fingers hovering over her controls. "That's why we're giving them exactly what they're looking for." The main viewer flared as the Kraxan fleet launched their first salvo. Hundreds of quantum-shifted torpedoes streaked toward the horizon, their targeting systems already probing for weaknesses. "Shields at maximum," Rylith called from the main engineering station. His leaves trembled with tension, but his voice was steady. "Quantum harmonics holding stable." Maya watched the approaching torpedoes, counting down in her head. The Kraxan computers would be processing their sensor data, looking for the pattern they expected to find. Thanks to Vex's betrayal, they thought they knew exactly what to look for. "Impact in 5 seconds, the tactical officer announced. Maya's fingers danced across her controls, implementing the first phase of her plan. On the surface, their shield harmonics showed subtle irregularities, exactly the kind of human improvisation the Kraxan would be expecting. The torpedoes struck. The horizon shuddered as its shields flared brilliant blue. "Shield strength at 90%, Rylith reported. "The enemy is adjusting their targeting algorithms." "Now comes the fun part," Maya muttered, activating her mechanical oscillator. Deep in the ship's engineering sections, precisely calibrated gears began to turn, introducing controlled instability into their quantum systems. The Kraxan launched their second wave, their weapons adjusted to exploit the weakness they thought they'd found. Maya grinned as her readings showed their targeting computers falling for the bait. "Multiple direct hits!" The ship rocked violently. "Shields at 60%. "Steady," Admiral Nix commanded, her scales now pulsing with intense purple determination. "Engineer Chen?" "Almost there," Maya replied, watching the quantum field patterns shift. The Kraxon computers were fully committed to their attack strategy now, their neural networks processing countless variables to optimize their targeting. The third wave launched. Maya's fingers flew across her controls, fine-tuning the mechanical oscillator's rhythm. "Rylith, prepare for emergency power transfer on my mark." "Standing by." His leaves rustled with nervous energy. "Though I still think this is impossible." "Impossible is just another engineering challenge." Maya watched the torpedoes approach, their quantum signatures shifting to match what they thought were weaknesses in the Horizon's defenses. And humans love a good challenge. The entire bridge held its breath as the weapons streaked closer. Maya counted down in her head, waiting for the perfect moment when the Kraxon targeting systems would be fully committed to their calculations. "Now!" She slammed her commands into place. The mechanical oscillators' carefully controlled chaos exploded through their quantum systems, creating a cascade of contradictory readings. The Kraxon computers, trying to process the impossible data, fell into exactly the kind of logical loop she'd hoped for. The torpedo swarm broke apart, their targeting systems unable to resolve the conflicting quantum states. Some shots went wide, others spun in useless circles, and a few simply detonated harmlessly in space. Enemy weapons are malfunctioning. Zextar's crystalline features arranged themselves into pure confusion. Their entire targeting network appears to be destabilizing. Maya allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Kraxon fleet's formation begin to waver. Their neural-linked systems, unable to process the quantum uncertainty she'd introduced, were spreading the chaos through their entire network. "That's what happens when you rely too much on perfect systems," she said, already moving to reinforce their advantage. "Sometimes you need a little human chaos to—" A new alarm cut through the moment of victory. Maya's eyes widened as she saw the readings from the quantum resonator. "Uh-oh." "Uh-oh is not an acceptable technical term," Zextar said sharply. "The mechanical oscillator is overloading," Maya explained, hands flying over her controls. "We've got about 30 seconds before—" The ship lurched violently as the quantum fields began to destabilize. They weren't out of the fight yet, not by a long shot. Warning klaxons blared across the stellar horizon as the quantum resonator's feedback loop threatened to tear the ship apart. Emergency lighting cast everything in a harsh red glow as Maya raced through her options. "Quantum field collapse in 20 seconds. Rylith's leaves whipped frantically as he tried to stabilize the system. "The mechanical oscillator is generating harmonic frequencies we never predicted." "Cut power to the resonator," Zextar ordered, his crystalline form sharp with urgency. "We can't—" Maya's fingers flew across her controls. "The Kraxon fleet is already recovering. Without the quantum interference, their targeting systems will lock on in seconds." Admiral Nix's scales flashed urgent patterns of gold and crimson. "Options, Engineer Chen." Maya studied the cascading readings, her mind racing. The mechanical oscillator was working too well, creating chaos that threatened friend and foe alike. They needed— Her eyes widened. "We need more chaos." "More?" Zextar's crystalline features arranged themselves into pure disbelief. "The system is already failing." "Exactly." Maya was already implementing her idea. "Rylith, remember what you said about chaos being impossible to control? You were right." The chief engineer's leaves rustled with sudden understanding. "We're not trying to control it anymore. We're going to ride it." Maya's hands danced across the controls. "Divert all auxiliary power to the resonator. Route it through the mechanical oscillator." "That will overload the entire system," Zextar protested. "That's the point." Maya looked up at Admiral Nix. "Permission to break my ship to save it." The Admiral's scales rippled with decisive purple. "Granted." Maya slammed the commands into place. Power surged through the overtaxed systems as she bypassed every safety protocol she'd ever written. The mechanical oscillator's gears spun faster, pushing the quantum fields beyond any sane parameters. "Kraxon vessels moving to attack position." The tactical officer's voice was tense. "Their targeting systems are reactivating." 5 seconds to total system failure, Rylith reported, his leaves trembling. Maya watched the readings spike, waited for the perfect moment of maximum chaos, and whispered, "Trust me. I'm an engineer." She hit the emergency purge. The accumulated quantum energy exploded outward in a wave of pure chaos. The Horizon's systems, guided by the mechanical oscillator's precise imperfection, rode the wave like a surfer cresting a tsunami. The Kraxon fleet, their neural networks trying desperately to process the impossible readings, weren't so lucky. Their formation shattered as their linked systems cascaded into total failure. Ships spun out of control, their perfect quantum technology overwhelmed by the very uncertainty they'd tried so hard to eliminate. "Enemy fleet is powering down," the tactical officer sounded bewildered. "Their systems are completely offline." "Not completely." Maya's diagnostic pad showed faint power signatures. "Their backup systems are kicking in. Minimal power, no quantum tech, just basic survival functions." "They're sending a transmission," the comm officer announced. "Text only. They're surrendering?" Admiral Nix's scales shifted to thoughtful blue, touched with victory gold. "It seems they've learned the danger of underestimating human innovation." "Not just human innovation." Maya turned to Rylith, whose leaves were still shaking from the ordeal. "I couldn't have done this without your help. Your understanding of quantum mechanics made this possible. We just needed to combine it with a little human chaos." The chief engineer's leaves rustled with what might have been embarrassment. "Perhaps there is something to be said for unconventional approaches." "Indeed." Zextar's crystalline features had arranged themselves into an expression Maya had never seen before. It took her a moment to recognize it as respect. "Though I would appreciate somewhat more warning before future system-wide catastrophes." "Where's the fun in that?" Maya grinned, already pulling up repair schematics. The mechanical oscillator would need a complete rebuild, but she had some ideas for improvements. Besides, sometimes the best solutions come from embracing a little uncertainty. As the bridge crew worked to secure their victory, Maya caught Admiral Nix watching her. The Admiral's scales had shifted to a new pattern, one that mixed the deep blue of tactical thinking with the bright colors Maya associated with curiosity and anticipation. "I suspect," Nix said, "that the Alliance's engineering protocols will need some revision after this." Maya patted her trusty wrench. "I've got a few suggestions, starting with the official recognition of percussive maintenance as a valid technical solution." The Admiral's scales flickered with what might have been amusement. "Perhaps the galaxy has much to learn from human engineers after all." "Oh, trust me," Maya said, already planning her next impossible modification. "We're just getting started."